Hi everyone, good to see you today. I am continuing our video series talking about parables. So today I'm going to be sharing about the parable of the rich fool. That is in Luke chapter 12 verse 13 to 21. So if you want to follow along, but I'm going to read it to us now. Chapter 12 verse 13. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." And then he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "This is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store up my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry." But then God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you've prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God." Interesting parable. Lovely couple of verses to digest, get in our brains this morning or this afternoon, wherever. A parable is a little bit like a cutscene in your favourite film or TV show. Looking back or looking forward to something that may or may not have happened, but there's a lesson, there's a story there, there's something to learn, and there's a question to ask. Some good stuff to think about, but ultimately, when you read this parable, or when you read some of the other ones that we've talked about, what is God saying to you individually? That's the thing about a parable. What is God saying to me through this story? What lesson is God trying to teach me in this opportunity? Sometimes it's good to say, what can I read? What is God saying? Sometimes it's also good to say, what is God not saying? Because I believe there's a few things he's not saying here. I want to clarify these to start with. God is not saying in this parable, Jesus is not saying that if you're rich, your life is about to be demanded from you. So if you're a rich person, or consider yourself a rich person watching this video, and you're thinking, "Oh, my life, I've only got one night left before I'm going to be, that's it for me." That's not what God's saying. Just remember that. You're safe for now. He's certainly not saying, "How dare you build barns?" It's nothing against the barn builders either. But he is asking us all a question. Who are you sharing with? Because ultimately, this question about what shall I do with this money, what shall I do with this harvest, what shall I do with this stuff, it's ultimately a question about our hearts. Where is our treasure? Where is our passion? What are we storing? What are we storing up for? Who are we sharing our life with? Who are we sharing our money with? What are we doing with our cash? Are we storing it up and keeping it all for ourselves for a rainy day? Or are we asking the question, what can I do with this to help other people? What is going on in your heart? I think God is trying to say in this parable. What is going on in here? Because verse 15 says, Jesus says, "Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." Okay, so that's what life doesn't consist of. What does life consist of? What do you think life consists of? I think it consists of love, of community, of sharing, of heart, of caring for one another. So how does that translate into our treasure, into our crops, into our finances, into what we give? Interesting question to ask. Where is that life coming from for ourselves and for other people? Because this guy who's storing up all his stuff, it says quite clearly, the ground of this rich man yielded an abundant harvest. So we might have had to put a bit of work into there. But at the end of the day, it's coming from the ground, and he's taking it up for himself, and he's storing it up, and he's like sitting back. And I bet you quite a lot of us would quite happily now just sit back. What does it say? Eat, drink, and be merry. That sounds like good stuff, doesn't it? Let's sit back, let's eat, drink, and be merry. But God is saying, no, guys, come on. What are we doing to share life with each other? What are we doing to share life with people that might not know it, that might not have it? What are we doing with our possessions, with the things that we have, the things that we own? It doesn't have to be cash. It can be your gift, it can be your talent, it can be your words, your thoughts, your time. What are you doing? Rather than storing that up in your barn, behind the scenes, keeping it to yourself. How are you being rich towards God and towards other people? So this poses a lot of challenging questions for us, this parable. An amazing little story that Jesus tells these guys. And I wonder what these guys went off to do afterwards. I hope they picked up the lesson and thought, you know what? Our life, you being my brother, and this inheritance means more than just money to us. This is about, where does life come from? How do we love? How do we care? How do we create community with the things that we have, with the people that might not have? Guys, thank you for joining us this morning. Check out some of our other parables videos that will be coming out on Tuesdays and Thursdays. A few have happened already, and we'll be doing a few more for the next few weeks. Thanks for joining us, and see you soon.